Hello there. Welcome into another episode of the Fat Guy Podcast. Thank you so much for listening today. Trying to get in one of these a week here. I went a long time without doing any podcast because I went through a long period of fighting grief, depression, and a lot of other issues after the passing of my mother. Took a long time. I'm not gonna lie about it. I don't pretend that nothing bad happened. It was very difficult, but you just wake up every day and you try to power through best you can, and you learn different ways of dealing with it, and eventually it's gotten better. It's not to say I don't miss my mom, and it's not to say, yesterday I was talking to her and apologizing to her for this day and that day, and this, she doesn't hear me. She's not here. It's just more cathartic for me. All that being said, it's coming up on 2 years, and it's much easier now. But it was a difficult go. So, we went for a while without any podcasting. So if you were somebody that enjoyed the podcast and you enjoyed seeing it pop up once a week or once every 2 weeks or however often we did them, and then we went away, I apologize for that. And nevertheless, we're hopefully back on track. Trying to live a more fasting focused lifestyle. So you have different levels of losing weight and getting healthier. And I try to look at it this way. And so when I have people asking me a lot of the time, what should I be doing? What's best for me? My first answer would be just do something. And so I'm going to get into the different levels, and I'm going to get into what we're doing now and how this, intermittent fasting, OMAD, extended fasting, all that's going and what's going on with us. But I just got to say this off the bat. You just got to do something. I can't tell you how many people will spend literally. I've had people that will ask me questions about keto, or ask me questions about intermittent fasting, or ask me questions about, macros. For weeks and weeks and weeks, they'll keep asking me questions, and they never start doing anything. They never even try to start a keto diet, or they never even try to start a fast. Or they'll ask questions like, I had a person ask me a question, then a month went by, and they asked me another question. Then like another month went by, and and then another 2 weeks went. And so for like literally 6 months, every 2 weeks to 1 month, I'd get a new question from them about fasting. And never once in that 6 months did they ever try to fast once. Like they didn't even try to fast 16 hours. They didn't even try to do the 16-8, which is the easiest fast of all. Look, you can't screw up a 16-8 fast. There's just no way. You just don't eat for 16 hours. It's not rocket science. Fasting doesn't get complicated until you get into the 5-day fasting, 7-day fasting, until it gets on out there. You ain't got to worry about electrolytes and how much water you drink and all that stuff to fast for 16 hours. You just don't. And so, maybe I'll do another podcast about this, but this is why I stopped offering coaching services, because I was coaching people. People would give me their money to coach them on keto, and then they didn't want to do anything about it. I remember very distinctly, I had this one person gave me $200 for a month of coaching, and from the very first day was trying to figure out how they could drink beer and be keto. And I'm like, you just can't do it. The two things are incompatible. Yeah, but I really like drinking beer. Well, drink beer, stay fat. That's your two options. You could continue to drink beer and stay fat, or you can be tired of being fat and stop drinking the beer. Now, and I told him, I'm like, look, once you've been keto for 6 weeks, you can have a weekend a month where you go drink a couple of low-carb beers with your friends on Saturday night. Maybe 2 Michelob Ultras or something. But you're never going to be a drinker again. And if drinking is that important to you, might I suggest that you have a much more serious problem than your weight? You're an alcoholic. That's not a judgment thing. That's just a fact. That's just like how I talk about myself. I'm not big boned or stout. I'm fat. I'm a fat person. I'm very fat. God, today's society, I swear, when I think about my mother and father's generation and then my grandmother and grandfather's generation, of how tough they were, and they didn't whine about things, and they didn't have to question things a billion times before they acted. I remember a bunch of times, man, Like, I remember it was my job to cut the grass for the most part, although my dad would get out there and cut it, help me cut it sometimes, or he'd see that I'd cut it and was taking a break and he'd go grab the lawnmower and cut some or whatever. But it basically was my job for several years to cut the grass, but it was just so hot. And so and then in the morning you'd have a bunch of dew on the grass, which is, with a push, which what we had was the old 5-horse Briggs and Stratton lawnmower that my dad had assembled together from this spare part and that spare part. And, you get that wet grass trapping up under there, bad things happen. So really your option is to do it late in the afternoon, right before sundown. And what you'll find about that is by the time that time of day gets there, you're really not in the mood to do it. And so another day would go by. And then I can't tell you how many times that I'd come home from school or whatever, and I'd see that my mom had jumped out there and had cut grass in the middle of the day. And I'm like, Mom, how do you get out there and cut grass at 2 p.m. when it's 100 degrees in the middle of the summer? She said, because the grass has to be cut, son. The grass has to be cut. And that's the time I had. I'm nothing like my parents. I'm just going to tell you. I don't have their fortitude. I don't have their determination. I don't have their willpower. I don't have their strength mentally or physically. I literally fell far from the tree. But as weak and as pitiful as I am, I look at other people and go, oh my God, would you please just stop whining and questioning things? There's an old phrase. It's called paralysis by analysis, where you just sit around analyzing stuff so much that you're paralyzed from doing anything. Look, jump in there and do something. If you're currently eating 3 times a day, crap, just go to eating 2 times a day. Just drop one meal. Just quit eating breakfast. That's not life-altering. It doesn't take a genius to do that. And then once you get used to that, then drop another meal. And bam, the next thing you know, you're eating 1 meal a day. Bam, just like that. And along the way, you're learning how your body's going to react and how you're going to feel. Start doing something. Holy cow, start doing something would be my advice to you. So, lately we've been doing I just started a 5-day fast and had a bunch of people on Facebook jump in and join me. And my invitation was, look, we're shooting for a 5-day fast. Jump in with me. We'll start a Facebook Messenger conversation for support and encouragement and all that stuff. And look, if you only go 1 day, that's fine. If you only go 3, that's fine. We'll shoot for 5. And we had somebody quit today, but it was the longest she'd ever fasted. She made it 74 hours without food, something she probably even didn't really think she could do before. 74 hours, man. And I'm sitting here thinking of all the benefits she achieved from that accomplishment. Her insulin level stayed at a super low pace, allowing her body to dip into fat reserves and burn them. At around 48 hours, her body kicked into heavy autophagy, where it started recycling old, dead, and damaged cells and chewing them up and eating them, and which is very important for prevention of disease and stuff, and how healthy her blood pressure got. And there's just so many things happen when you fast. And wow, if she'd sat around and said, man, I can't do 5 days, and I'm not even going to try it, and I don't know, she'd have never made it to 74 hours. And there's still several people in the group clicking on. I think we're in the day 4 now. And day 4 is, if you can make it to day 4, that's where you reap the benefits, man. That's where the worst of the hunger goes away. You might feel a little tinge here, a little tinge there, but your ketone levels are so high. I checked mine today. My ketone levels are like 2.5, I think, which is super high. If you're doing a ketogenic diet and you're eating 2 to 3 meals a day, and you're strict keto and you're doing the keto 100% right, your ketones are probably averaging between 0.5 and 1.5 at the very maximum end. That's for the extreme end. And I'm at 2.5. My ketones are through the roof. I have tons of energy. My mind is super focused and super clear. I have so much energy, it's hard to sleep. And that's what happens when your body doesn't have to waste time processing and digesting food and converting and sending nutrients here and converting this and that. Your energy just goes through the roof because you don't have to waste all that energy doing that. Have you ever eat at 2 p.m. or you ate lunch, you went to work, you had lunch, you had your big lunch, and then by 1 o'clock you could barely stay awake. Your body is so tired. That is your body using all of its resources and energy to digest that food. For most of you, it's because you're insulin resistant, pre-diabetic, or diabetic. I had a lot of people ask me, like, I've been diabetic, but what's this pre-diabetic? Am I at risk? Well, if you can answer this question, yes, then yeah, you're pre-diabetic. 99% you're pre-diabetic. If you eat your regular meal at lunch or dinner and you nearly go into a food coma, it's because your body is pumping out so much insulin to try to take care of all those carbs, and so much energy is being diverted to handle the digestion that you literally either collapse or nearly collapse. I remember back in 2013 or something, I would eat a meal and I would go unconscious for 2 hours. It happened every time I ate a meal. I would literally go unconscious. Like I never ate at a table or anything. I always ate in my recliner, and I'd sit in my recliner and I'd eat my meal or whatever it would be. And the next thing I know, I'd be waking up 2 hours later wondering what happened. And so it's pre-diabetic. And it's a strain on the body. So, look, there's so many advantages to fasting. Everybody talks about the benefits of eating. That's all you hear in the world is eat this, eat here, eat this. You need to eat this. Nobody ever says you don't need to eat nothing. Nobody ever steps up and goes, you know what? You're a fat cow and you just need to stop eating. And that's what we need to hear. And I don't mean that as an insult. If you're overweight and you're listening and you're going, oh my God, he's called me a fat cow. I call myself a fat cow. I'm a fat tub of lard. I have years of stored body fat on me. I literally could not eat for a year and I'd be fine. That's how much food is stored on my body. And so I'm fat. I'm just fat. I'm miserably obese and fat. And if you're in that condition, I'm sorry. You're not big boned. You're not stout. You're just fat. You're just fat, and you have a serious health complication. It's going to cause you to die early. And if you do manage to live late in life, you're going to be so miserable from all the diseases and issues that you have that it ain't going to be worth living. You know, you're going to wind up getting a toe cut off or a foot cut off from the diabetes, which is going to cause you to have a stroke. Your mouth's going to be drooped to one side, and you're going to be able to speak clearly, and you're going to be in a wheelchair, and somebody's going to spoon feed you. I mean, there's a lot of people with these diseases that live to be 80, but, you know, the last 10 years of their life are horrible because they're reaping the rewards of being fat for so long. And then I know you say, well, skinny people get that too. Well, skinny fat people that still have elevated insulin levels and have all the disease markers that a fat person has because they're what you call skinny fat. And so they may get a little big, but they pretty much look normal. You know these people, if you look at them, a lot of them, you look at them from behind and they look normal, and then they turn to the side and you can see they got a gut going out 8 feet. But then you have other people that really don't have anything. They may have just the slightest belly where they really look slim. But they have all this fat wrapped around their interstitial organs. All their organs are just wrapped with fat. They're skinny fat. And they have the same medical issues that you have, carrying all your fat externally so it's easy to be seen. Matter of fact, they have worse because it's hidden and they don't know anything's wrong. And that's what happens when you see these people that are 45 years old drop dead from a heart attack. And they're like, oh my God, he looks so slim. No, he was skinny fat. He lived a life of elevated insulin and, constantly battling high blood sugars to keep them at a level that was normal, and the body broke down. I'm not saying that's every case, but there's so many cases of that, okay? There's a lot of reasons we die. What is the point of this podcast? Well, the point of this podcast is to do something. I'm just so frustrated. And look, I don't mind you asking me questions. Don't take, oh my God, I can't send him a question on Facebook or Instagram because he's going to be irritated by it. No. I love answering questions. I love helping people start keto or start 16-8 intermittent fasting or start 20-4 intermittent fasting or start 1 meal a day or start extended fasting or whatever it is that you decide that you want to try to do. What I don't enjoy is when it's been 3 months and you're still sending me questions all the time and you haven't done crap about it. You haven't even tried. You know, then you're just not only it's one thing to waste my time, but you're wasting your time. You know, you're just wasting your time. Do something. You do not have to be a rocket scientist to stop eating breakfast. You do not have to be a rocket scientist to understand that the first step to low carb to keto is low carb, and so the first step to low carb is cutting out bread and cutting out pasta and cutting out drinks with sugar in them. If you don't do any more than that, you're leaps and bounds ahead of the rest of society. You could do two things and you would be so far ahead of the rest of society, it wouldn't be funny. And those two things would be, A, don't drink drinks with sugar in them. Really not diet drinks either, because they have an insulin response as well. But if you want to have one occasionally as a treat, that's fine. But don't drink drinks with sugar in them. Don't eat bread and don't eat pasta. And number 2, stop eating breakfast. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have breakfast foods, because breakfast foods are some of the best low-carb foods ever, as long as you don't do the grits or the bread or stuff. But you like breakfast foods, fine. Have breakfast at lunch or have it at dinner. Have you some scrambled eggs with a piece of cheese on it and some bacon. Oh, God, it doesn't get much better than that. Or some sausage or whatever. But just skip breakfast. Give your body a chance from when you stop eating at 8 o'clock at night. Hopefully you're done eating by 8 o'clock at night. You don't eat again until noon the next day. You don't eat till lunch the next day. Allow your body's time to have insulin to drop, and have it so your insulin, it's not so hard for your insulin to drop because you weren't eating a ton of carbs and sugar. So one, your insulin isn't so much through the roof anymore, and so then you give it 16 hours for it to fall off. Wow, your insulin falls low, your body dips into some fat stores. Next thing you know, you've lost 5 pounds. You're like, holy crap, how'd that happen? Well, it happened easy. You quit eating bread, you quit eating pasta, you quit drinking drinks with sugar in them, and you gave your body a break from food for 16 hours. It's not hard. It's just not rocket science. And then you can go from there. You don't have to jump in hardcore. When I talk about fasting 5 days or fasting 7 days, people are like, oh, I could never do that. I'm like, well, could you fast for 16 hours? I didn't start out fasting 5 and 7 days. Now, way back in the day, in the early 90s, I was a very, very, very devoted religious person. And we had a group and we traveled a lot, and I fasted and prayed a lot. So I'm not foreign to fasting. I'd fast a day, or I'd fast 2 days, or I think probably the most I ever fasted back then was maybe 3 days. And I'd do a lot of praying and stuff. So it's not like fasting was foreign to me. But hey, I never fasted 5 days or 7 days. And it all started with me fasting some. 16-8 was the first thing I did. And I can't tell you how good you will feel on 16-8. I have a friend of mine in California. She's always ranting and raving about how good she feels when all she does is just eat reasonable. And she does 16-8 or 20-4. So you can either go 16 hours without any kind of calorie, or you go 20 hours without any kind of calorie. I like to say without any kind of calorie, because people, when you tell people don't eat, they don't understand. Well, they're still drinking Cokes. I didn't eat anything, I swear. How many Cokes did you have? 6. No, a Coke has like 140 calories. I think that's a 12 ounce. It's like 140 calories. If you had 6 Cokes, my God, you had like 1,000 calories of nothing but sugar. So I find that it's easier, instead of telling people to don't, you fast and don't eat for 16 hours, you don't consume any calories for 16 hours. So what is that? What can you consume? Well, again, it's not rocket science. Anything that doesn't have a calorie in it, you can pretty much consume. Again, I caution you against having the diet drinks, because no matter what artificial sweetener is used, your body is trained to, when a sweet taste hits the tongue, it anticipates sugar is coming, and it automatically raises your insulin in anticipation of that. Granted, that's better than drinking a Coke full of sugar, but it's still not as good as not doing that to your body. So, look, I still have a Coke Zero. I have a Coke Zero weakness, but I treat them as treats. I have one a week, or maybe I'll work in 2 a week or something. My last fast was supposed to be 7 days. I wound up going 5, but I remember at exactly the 2 1/2 day mark, which was halfway through the fast, I rewarded myself with half of a Coke Zero. I regretted it, because it kicked up the hunger signaling, went through the roof, and I felt like I was starving for the next 4 hours. So I'm not doing it this time. I'm into day 4 now on my fast. Not celebrating with no Coke Zero this time. But I'm saying it can be done. It can be worked in. But it's not rocket science. What doesn't have calories in it? What doesn't have sugar in it? Well, water, unsweetened tea, black coffee, herbal teas. Just check the label, make sure they didn't slip some kind of sweetener in there. These type things. That's what you drink, preferably water. But, you can work in black coffee and unsweet tea. My overarching theme for this podcast would be do something. Just do something. If you want to take control of your life, and believe me, you may not think I sound hypocritical, but every fiber of my being right now is saying, God, you're so hypocritical. Because I achieved a phenomenal level of success. Then my mother died, and I feel like grief and depression and pain robbed me of that success because I gained a lot of that weight back. But I would just lay in bed for days. I would lay in bed for 5, 6, 7 days, 14 days. I remember there was a month where I only got up to pee and get food for a month. That's it. I just laid in bed and watched Netflix and slept. And I'd go to the convenience store and I'd buy like $40 of food, and it would just be donuts and Little Debbie snack cakes. And I'd have a box on the other side of my bed, this big box. And I would pour all that stuff in that box, and I'd just lay in bed and I'd wake up and eat donuts or eat oatmeal cream pie. And I'd go back to sleep. And that was my life. It was horrible. And I look back on it and I regret it. It erased the monumental success that I achieved. It erased it. I lost 125 pounds, which is something so mind-boggling to me that I can't. It's looking back on it. I realized what an achievement was. But, I was driven. I was super driven to be as healthy as I could be, so I could take care of my mom the best I could take care of her. And that drove me. It drove me for 5 years. It drove me to starting out with some kind of pill. And then I moved to vegan, and then I moved to raw whole food vegan, and then I ultimately arrived at keto, which was the best thing I ever found. It was a journey to finding out what worked best, but I was determined to not stop and keep trying. And my motivating factor was to do everything I could to be there for my mom. And once she was gone, a lot of things happened. The grief and depression happened, but also my driving factor was gone. And I didn't have to worry about taking care of my mom anymore. That part of my life, that phase had ended. That life commitment had ended. That thing I needed to do ended. So it was so difficult. But I tell you, I fought it a long time. I'd fight it, and I'd gain 5 or 10 pounds, and then I'd get mad, and I'd get pissed, and I'd lose 5 of it back, but still I would still have gained 5. And then as the depression and grief got worse, it was not just gaining 10 pounds, I would gain 30 pounds. And then I'd get really pissed. And I'd buckle down and I'd lose 10 or 15 of it. But even losing 10 or 15 of it, that still was a net gain of 15. And then I went through a spell where, it seems like I gained something like 40 pounds or something over a couple of months or 3 months or something. It was an insane amount of weight. And, God, it was driving me so crazy, and I just buckled down, and I'm like, I refused to accept this, but I hadn't dealt with the grief yet. I hadn't dealt with the grief, and I was fighting all of that. And I went and talked to a counselor. Then I did one of those phone counselors where you talk through an app. There's several of those companies where you can talk to a therapist through an app, and you get to do FaceTime with them, or you can text them anytime. And all that was just none of it helped. And then I bought this book from Audible. I don't remember the name of it right off, but I was only into like the second or third chapter or something where the woman she said, your problem is you're fighting the grieving process, which is going to extend the grieving process, and you're just going to keep being miserable. And when that sunk into me, and I know that I've gotten way off the weight loss now, but I'm going to end the podcast after this. I apologize. But when that sunk in for me, I was a little bit up at that time. I was getting around. But I said, if this grief strikes me again the way it has, to where it's so debilitating that my life halts, I'm going to wallow in it, and I'm not going to stop until I'm not going to fight it. I'm going to embrace it, and I'm going to stay right there in that place until I have gotten it all out. And that's what happened. It was probably a couple weeks later. I'm back in bed, stricken with grief. And I just stopped fighting it. I didn't fight it. I didn't say you got to stop this. I didn't say I've got to get through this. I just laid there and grieved. I just grieved. And it was weeks and weeks and weeks. I don't remember how long it was. Somewhere between 3 and 5 weeks, I think. But I never tried to stop it, and I never tried to fight it. And when that was over, I was such a different person. That doesn't mean I still don't grieve for my mom, because I do. It doesn't mean I don't miss her. Doesn't mean I don't ever cry. Doesn't mean I don't ever talk to her and say, God, I wish you were here. But it's not that life debilitating grief that I was having. And so it allowed me to finally get back on track. And so, hey, we have life challenges again. And the beautiful thing is that I know I've achieved insane amounts of life-changing health and weight loss once. And I know I can not only do that again, but do greater. And that's what's going to happen. The only thing that will stop me from achieving that is death. You know, if I die in the next week or two or the next year, I probably won't have hit that goal. But if I just live a couple of years, and it may not take two, it may only take one. I don't know how long it'll take. But if I can live a couple of years, I'll hit it. I'm just going to hit it. Barring something happening, and you never know what's going to happen in life. You know, just when you think you got life figured out, some kind of curveball comes and hits you and puts you in a position you never planned on being in. But provided things are reasonable, hey, we're powering through. We're going on. And it all starts with doing something. That is my message to you today, is do something. Stop asking so many questions without action. Questions are fine. Asking is fine. But asking without action is a waste of everybody's time. Yours, the people in your life, the person that you're asking the questions from. You're just wasting everybody's time if you're just in the asking stage. Asking. What about this? I don't understand this. What happens if this happens? But what about this? And I heard from somebody that this. Whatever. Do something. Get off of your ass and do something. And I'll help you every way I can. I promise you I will. Thank you so much for listening and sharing. Follow us on social media. Fat Guy Podcast is the name, no matter what social media you like. Instagram, Facebook, whatever. And subscribe to the podcast. And the biggest favor you can do for me is, if you're an Apple Podcast person, is go to the Apple Podcast page for my podcast and leave a review. Leave me 5 stars, and if I've helped you in any way, share that with people. Because that tells Apple to share my podcast with more people, and we're able to help more people. Thank you so much. Talk to you next time.